Welcome to Why Muscle Matters. Muscle really is the fountain of health. There are lots of misconceptions about muscle and how to make it and why it matters and why you want more and how to keep it. And I'm hoping in the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, we can clear up some of the common misconceptions about muscle. Muscle isn't just about looks, although I don't discount the importance of feeling and looking good, but really we're going to explain or explore a few ways that muscle keeps you healthy. I'm Shayla Roberts. I've been a certified strength and conditioning specialist for 25 years, and I've helped many people make more muscle for lasting benefits at all sorts of ages. I have an extensive background in health and fitness, and I'm a professionally certified coach. So I have some experience and education in why muscle is so important. So, what are we going to talk about today? What's today's workout? How muscle mass matters. Research shows that muscle mass can say a lot about a person's overall health status. Doctors are being encouraged to make measuring muscle another vital sign like blood pressure, weight, and heart rate. It does take one piece of specialized equipment. It's a grip strength and it doesn't take up very much room, and it's really easy to use, and it means a lot in terms of your overall health. A few studies that confirm the critical role that muscle mass plays in health. People with less muscle have more surgical and post-operative complications, stay in the hospital longer, have lower physical abilities, poorer quality of life, and tend to have lower survival rates. Women who have breast cancer and have more muscle have nearly 60% better chance of survival. Something that we're all thinking about right now. Patients in intensive care with more muscle spend less time on ventilators as well as less time in the ICU and have a better chance of survival. Folks with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease who have more muscle experience better respiratory outcomes and have lower occurrence of osteopenia or osteoporosis. And another study found that individuals in long-term care settings who have lower muscle mass experience more severe Alzheimer's. A researcher at the University of Alberta, Carla Prado, says that muscle mass should be looked at as a new vital sign. If healthcare professionals identify and treat low muscle mass, they can significantly improve their patients' health outcomes, and advances in technology are making it easier for us to do so. So we know that muscle matters for health, for preventing disease, for recovering from disease, and for a longer life. So that's what we're going to talk about today, as well as a little basic anatomy, how to measure how much muscle you have, some other factors about muscle that improve your health, how to make more muscle, and what to eat to keep your muscle. We're going to start with a few myths, that's very hard to say, myths about muscle. And first of all, one of the most popular ones is older people should focus on cardiovascular fitness and they don't need to worry about building muscle mass. You can see that the woman, the before and after picture of Joan McDonald was when she was late 60s is the before picture, and now at 74 is the after picture. So there's no reason that you wouldn't build more muscle as you age, and it certainly is critical for health. One of the reasons Joan started to exercise is because She couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, and her doctors wanted to prescribe more medications for her conditions. And she thought, I actually don't want to take any more medication. I want to change my health. So, age is not a barrier. You do not only build muscle when you're young. Um, that you need to lift really heavy light weights. Um, like this dude in the middle, that's not a really heavy weight, but doing weight that's heavy enough for you and doing it properly will make a big difference. I think that he's just going to get a sore arm. Another myth about muscle is that you must go to the gym. Well, this makes it easier socially and physically. This is not the case currently. So there are lots of ways to build muscle without going to the gym. People think they're going to get big if they go to the gym and do weight training exercises. No, really, you will get smaller because muscle takes up less space than fat. You think that if you need to burn more calories, you might want to do more cardio because strength training burns less calories than cardio, but only temporarily. When you step off that treadmill or that cross trainer, the calorie burn stops. When you do a strength training workout, the afterburn lasts 24 to 48 hours. And people think that they only need to do light weights. No, you need to do the right weight for your current level of strength. So there's many common myths about muscle. And some of them have a basis in truth, but most of them don't. So let's talk about what is muscle. And you have three types of muscle in your body: skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. We're talking mostly about skeletal muscles, and they help you move in various ways. They keep you balanced and strong and functioning. Smooth muscle would be something that you don't control. Uh, muscles that are in your intestines, for instance, and cardiac muscle is your heart, and it beats independently. You don't need to send signals to your heart. It has its own signaling system. So we are primarily concerned today with skeletal muscle. And this is kind of what they look like if you're going to draw them. You have over 600 muscles in your body, and skeletal muscles consist of muscle fibers, which are very long single muscle cells that are bound together and wrapped with connective tissue. And then about 20 to 80 of these little bundles are grouped together, and then all of those bundles are grouped together. And then all of the fascia that surrounds these bundles becomes the tendon and attaches your muscle to bone, which is how you move your bones, by pulling on the bone. The only action that your muscles can do is pulling. Your muscles cannot push. When you're pushing, your muscles are actually pulling on a bone. That's very, very basic anatomy and how your muscles work. They contract by nervous system firing and pull on a bone to help you move or stand up correctly or balance or react. So how do you know how much muscle that you have? There's a number of ways, and people talk about lean body mass and muscle mass. Those terms are interchangeable, really. Lean body mass really includes everything, not only your muscles, but organs, bones, skin, and body water. It's everything but your body fat. And muscle mass obviously refers to only the weight of your muscles. But typically we measure your body fat and just assume everything else. Unless you do the DEXA scan, which is the gold standard, where you can see the difference between body weight and your bones and your fat, you're kind of just assuming that everything else is muscle weight. You could use body fat calipers. You can't do this on yourself, but you could get someone who's trained to do them. And you take a number of measurements at different sites, and there's a calculation to figure out how much lean body mass and how much fat mass you have. This is pretty good, especially if you have the same person doing the measurements over time. So it can be inconsistent if someone else is doing them or they don't do them in exactly the same spot. But typically, if you have the same person do the measurements every time, you get a pretty accurate measurement. And then the easiest but the least effective is bioelectrical impedance, where you're either standing on a platform or holding on to handles, and you get an estimate of how much body fat you have. This can be affected by a number of things, including how hydrated you are. If you have a scale like this at home, I would just use it for change over time. It's not the most accurate, but it could give you a measure of change as you increase your muscle mass. So there is a chart that gives us an average for men and women of percent body fat. We don't have charts for percent muscle mass, so we have to kind of estimate muscle mass based on how much body fat we have. And you can see that the ranges differ as you get older, but that doesn't mean that you have to gain body fat. It's just assumed that you will, and these are the healthy ranges. But it's also from 2008, not that these wouldn't be accurate, but as we do more research, as the population ages, we will probably adjust these as well. So muscle mass percentage is an indicator of health, and over time, muscle naturally declines, which is called sarcopenia. The percentage of muscle mass varies between people, varies on several factors, including how fit you are, your size, your gender. And there are no really specific guidelines for normal or muscle mass percentage should be, but the healthy body fat indicator is useful for an overall indicator of body composition, because we want less of our body to be adipose or fat tissue and more of our body to be muscle or lean tissue. And we know that muscle mass plays a role in increased performance, whether that's in our sports or in activities, but it can also play a role in our overall health. We know that muscle is underrated and underappreciated, but muscle mass can also play an important role in prevention of chronic diseases and conditions. Gaining muscle mass can give you more energy, and you're stronger, you have more power, and it can also help with maintaining a healthy weight, as a higher percentage of muscle mass reflects a lower percentage of body fat. And we know that if you have less muscle mass, you're going to be more insulin resistant, have higher cardiovascular risks, more likely to have falls and fractures, and breathing problems. So why is muscle so important for health? There's many benefits to keeping the muscles strong and healthy, not only just reducing your risk of injury, but also lots of types of muscle building exercises will build bone density. Exercises that increase muscle mass have mental health benefits. And we know that research trials have shown that resistance training can improve anxiety and depression. We know that low muscle mass is associated with higher surgical complications, longer hospital stays, poorer quality of life. So muscle mass is really important. So we want to avoid losing our muscle, which is what sarcopenia is. It's a tendency to lose muscle as we get older, although muscle loss begins at age 30. Some people estimate that now it starts earlier with our more sedentary lifestyles, and causes muscle loss of maybe 3 to 5% per decade. Treating Untreated sarcopenia, just like untreated osteoporosis, can lead to an increased risk of falls and fractures. So many research scientists say that musculoskeletal aging is a major public health issue, and it's costing us lots of money. So not only personally, but as a society. So as muscle loss affects at least 10% of adults over 50, it is not automatic. It is not just a part of aging, but it can decrease life expectancy and quality of life. It is not inevitable. Muscle is constantly changing, and so we can rebuild muscle tissue, but if you don't use it, you will lose it. Muscle loss also results in reduced power and also makes it harder for us to do everyday activities. It decreases our speed. It increases fat deposits inside of our muscle tissue. Muscle loss reduces our balance, coordination, and reaction time. Low muscle mass is associated with an increased risk of infection, dementia, diabetes, and many types of cancer. So muscle really is critical for health. The cost of inactivity worldwide is very, very large, and it's not just personal. There's direct medical costs, like taking care of people in the hospital, physician care, medications. There's indirect costs, economic costs due to loss of work or illness or injury. You might miss more time at work if you have less muscle. So this is a worldwide problem, and it's not just personal. Muscle loss starts, as I said, around sometime around 30. So it is best to start with strong muscles and maintain muscle mass, but you can still rebuild your muscle. It's just not as easy, and you don't have the same potential to build muscle tissue. Excuse me. So as we can see in this slide at the top, there's a 40-year-old triathlete, and this slide is an MRI taken through the top of their thigh, and then a 74-year-old sedentary person, and then a 74-year-old triathlete. And you can see that the 40-year-old triathlete and the 74-year-old triathlete are pretty similar. In fact, the 74-year-old triathlete has less subcutaneous fat, so the white ring around the outside of the leg, and then the dark gray would be the muscle tissue, and then the black and white in the middle is their bone. And then when you see the sedentary person, they have significantly more subcutaneous fat. And you can see how their muscle tissue is disrupted because now they have fat deposits within the muscle as well as their bone has shrunk quite a bit. It's quite a bit smaller than the triathlete. This does not mean that you need to start doing triathlons. It's just an indication that you do not need to lose your muscle as you get older. And if you are endurance junkie, doing some strength training will mean that you don't lose as much power, you don't lose as much efficiency, and you can retain your speed for longer because you have more muscle to draw upon. So three pieces of our health that are really affected by muscle. Certainly depression and anxiety. Many studies have shown that exercise relieves stress and anxiety, and lots of studies have shown that they relieve strength training relieves depression and anxiety as well, if not better than medications. It may be harder to have people stick to strength training. It might be easier to provide them with medications, but there's no negative side effects to exercise. So especially strength training has anxiety reducing effects, and people who have mild to moderate depression who do some kind of resistance training 2 or more times a week also show a significant reduction in their symptoms. So exercise that increases your muscle mass has mental health benefits. What about your immune system? Exercise can boost the immune system. In the study in the Journal of Sport and Health Sciences, authors noted that exercise has an anti-inflammatory effect, and habitual exercise improves your immune system regulation and delays the onset of age-related dysfunction, as we thought that our immune system used to be compromised as we age, and perhaps that dysfunction is more because of sedentary living, not because of aging. And muscle definitely helps in insulin sensitivity. The more muscle you have, the more sensitive you are to insulin, and the lower your risk of pre-diabetes. Strength training helps to regulate glucose. Strength training will definitely help with metabolic syndrome. So strength training helps reduce abdominal fat. Strength training will help reduce your blood pressure and your body weight. And strength training helps your heart work less hard. We have about 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels, or 60,000 miles of blood vessels. And if you have more muscle, they help the heart by making it easier to pump blood back to the heart. So muscle helps all of our systems. A few more really important benefits of muscle and a few stats about how active people are. Less than 5% of adults participate in 30 minutes of physical activity each day. Only 1 in 3 adults receive the recommended amount of 150 minutes per week. And more than 80% of adults do not meet the guidelines for aerobic and muscle strengthening activities. And 30% of adults overall are physically inactive. So improving your activity will improve just about everything from stress, confidence, posture, sleep, your brain health. There's so many benefits to having more muscle. This is Peggy Stockton. I just had to put her in. She was really the first woman bodybuilder at Muscle Beach in 1950s. Her nickname was Peggy Stockton, and she was in the popular magazines of the time like Muscular Development and Strength and Health. She became very popular on Muscle Beach, where she gave exhibitions, lifting heavy objects and poses, like the male bodybuilders were known for. She worked out with weights. She didn't train any differently than her male counterparts. She was never a bodybuilder competitor because they didn't have women's bodybuilding competitions in 1950s. But she is a pioneer in women's bodybuilding. This is Ernestine Shepard. She didn't start lifting weights until she was 54, and she went bathing suit shopping with her sister and didn't like the way she looked in the mirror. She was the oldest competitive bodybuilder. She was a personal trainer. She's in her 80s in this picture. So it is never too late to start, and you can always make a difference. And men and women can build muscle. Obviously, women are not going to build as much muscle as men because we don't have the same hormones. But you can be strong and fit and healthy at any age. So how do you do that? Well, there's a number of things that you need to do, and it certainly is easier if you start young, but it's not too late. It does require consistency. It does require eating well, a proper training plan for you with progressive overload, making things harder gradually so you don't hurt yourself, and appropriate rest. Resistance training increases your muscle mass, but it involves, pushing or pulling things like a weight or your body weight or a resistance band. And the forces that you cause the forces that you are created cause tiny tears in your muscle, and that repair makes your muscle stronger. You want to make sure that you do a program that's right for you, because injury is a real concern. And if you get injured, maybe you will quit. So you want to make sure that the workout you're doing is properly planned for you and appropriate for your level, but you still need to do all of these other things to get the best benefits. This is a really simple example. It's not intended for exercise prescription, but we know that doing strength training at least twice a week will be beneficial. We should still do aerobic exercise. You want to reduce your sedentary time regardless. You shouldn't be sitting all day and then just do your exercise and expect miracles to happen. We do need recovery, and recovery can include a nap. Recovery is when sleeping is when we release growth hormone, and growth hormone is critical for repairing muscle. So we definitely need to make sure that we have a very good sleep routine. And if you're doing high volume of exercise, napping is a great recovery. Some of the things that would be considered strength training, body weight exercise, free weights, resistance bands. There's many ways to do strength training, and one size does not fit all. But everyone can benefit from a properly planned exercise program, as well as good nutrition. So eating a balanced and healthy diet is critical and the key to staying fit and healthy. And if you wish to build your muscles, eating well is really critical. So currently it's really popular to do intermittent fasting or time-restricted feeding. Time-restricted feeding would be when you only ate during 8 hours during the day and you don't eat during the other time. And there's nothing wrong with either of those if you're doing it properly. But if you want to build muscle, that is counterproductive because muscles need nutrients in real time. So even though intermittent fasting and time-restricted feeding is very popular, if you're trying to build muscle, I wouldn't try to do them at the same time. We all have a calorie budget. We need to eat within our budget, and we need to eat the 3 main nutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. We should be drinking water. It should be the drink of choice. People are fixated on protein, for better or worse, but most people get much more protein than they need. So really what you should think about is eating healthy whole foods, having about 50 to 60% of your diet from carbohydrates, because that's what fuels your muscle and your brain. It is our preferred fuel source. So whole unprocessed sources of carbohydrates, vegetables, grains, those kinds of things. The timing of protein is important to repair and rebuild, and we need protein after long or intense exercise sessions, and that could be like nuts, beans, lentils, seeds, soybeans, tofu. There's no reason to supplement protein. There's no reason to take protein shakes. For a few reasons. 1, supplements are really expensive, and 2, they're not regulated, and 3, you don't get the orchestra of nutrients that you get from real food. So all of those micronutrients work together to keep us healthy, and if you're having a supplement, it's hopefully one single ingredient, not a combination of all the things that keep us healthy. So ideally, maybe a gram of protein per kilogram of body weight for the average fit person. If you're doing long endurance activities, 2 hours or more, you might even go up to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, but you would have to be doing fairly intense exercise fairly regularly for longer than 2 hours at a time to need more protein. The only people who are really protein deficient are people who may be ill or calorie deficient, but most people get plenty of protein. They might not get it at the right time. They may be loading their protein sources at later in the day, and you really like to have that protein throughout the day consistently. And then you want to try to eat most of your fat in food. So avocados, almonds, olives, as opposed to olive oil or flax oil. Try to eat the food because then you get the fiber and the other nutrients as opposed to added fats. And we don't need a ton of fat. We need about 10% in our diet every day. But that would be really hard to get only 10% because most foods have some fat in it. Fat is very calorie dense. It has 9 calories per gram, whereas protein and carbohydrates have 4 calories per gram. So really be aware of your fat calories because they can add up really quickly. So if you're eating mostly whole plant foods regularly, have your protein spread throughout the day, drinking water and staying hydrated. You don't need fancy supplements or expensive supplements. You really need to eat well. The key to building muscle is to stress it a little bit and recover, eat well, and do it again. It's very simple. You can do it at home. You don't need fancy equipment until you get stronger. And there's no reason to think that you can't make more muscle no matter what age you are. And if you have any questions, please send them to me. I'm happy to answer them. And if you're interested in speaking about your personal fitness program, you can book an appointment with me at the evolutioncoachingyou.com /thank you page. There's a booking calendar. You can have a half an hour free consultation, or please send me an email if you have any questions about how you can build more muscle.